Imagine this. You step back from the world for a moment, and suddenly people notice your absence. They wonder where you have gone, what you are planning, and why you are not among them. Your silence becomes a question they cannot answer. Your disappearance becomes a force they cannot control. By vanishing, you do not lose influence, you multiply it. And by returning at the perfect moment, you transform absence into absolute power. In the next few minutes, you will learn exactly how to operate in ghost mode and why disappearing may be the single most powerful strategy you can employ. In the relentless game of power, visibility is often a trap. Those who are always present, always vocal, always reacting, may believe they hold influence, but in truth, they have become predictable, exposed, and vulnerable. True authority is rarely exercised through constant engagement. It is cultivated in the shadows, in absence, in the artful manipulation of perception. Today, we are going to reveal a secret that the ambitious have understood for centuries: the power of vanishing, the mastery of invisibility, and the strategic leverage it creates in every sphere of life. In the game of power, visibility is a double-edged sword. Those who constantly show themselves, who walk openly through the corridors of influence and make their presence known at every turn, may believe they are asserting control. Yet in truth, they are laying themselves bare to manipulation, observation, and ultimately, exploitation. To be omnipresent is to be predictable. When your movements, your decisions, and your reactions are always visible, your adversaries begin to anticipate your strategies before you have even enacted them. There is a subtle tyranny in invisibility, a quiet authority in absence that those who constantly parade themselves cannot comprehend. Consider the rulers and generals of history who understood this principle intuitively. The prince who retreats from the public eye, who disappears from social circles or withdraws from overexposure, immediately seizes a unique advantage. By vanishing, he is no longer confined to the judgments and whims of the crowd. The absence creates ambiguity, and ambiguity is a weapon. People begin to question his motives, to speculate on his intentions, and in this speculation, they grant him a form of power greater than any speech or decree could achieve. When you are absent, you force others to act in the dark, compelled by uncertainty. They make mistakes, reveal their desires, and commit to paths they would have otherwise avoided. Every move they make becomes fodder for your strategy, and every miscalculation a tool for your dominion. Yet, to wield absence effectively, one must understand its nuances. It is not enough simply to vanish. One must vanish with purpose, as a master tactician withdrawing from the battlefield not out of fear, but to reorganize, to observe, and to strike when least expected. The mind that disappears must remain alert, watching the ripple effects of absence. Observe how allies behave in your silence, how rivals adjust to the sudden void, how opportunities arise in the very space you leave behind. This is the advantage of strategic absence. It allows you to command the stage without appearing upon it, to manipulate outcomes from the shadows while others flounder in the light. In practical terms, those who vanish gain a rare form of psychological leverage. Humans are creatures of patterns. They are comforted by consistency, yet manipulated by its absence. By breaking your usual presence, you disrupt the expectations of others. Colleagues, competitors, and even friends begin to question where you have gone and why. And in that questioning, you are no longer merely a participant in their world, you become the axis upon which it turns. Every decision, every conversation, every plan they make is now subtly influenced by the silent gap you have created. Consider also the contrast between visibility and absence in social or professional settings. The person who is always present is often taken for granted. Their contributions are diminished, their influence diluted, because it is assumed they will always be there. Absence, on the other hand, confers rarity, and rarity breeds attention. A leader who disappears strategically is treated differently. People prepare for their reappearance, they discuss them in their absence, they anticipate their judgments. By withdrawing, you cultivate an aura, not of intimidation through confrontation, but of authority through mystery. This is the power of invisibility. It amplifies your presence precisely because you are not there. The strategic use of absence also requires self-discipline and patience. Many fail because they misunderstand vanishing as avoidance or retreat. The weak flee out of fear, the powerful disappear by choice. True power lies in knowing when to recede and when to strike, when to observe and when to reveal. Your absence must not signal weakness, indecision, or uncertainty. It must signal that you operate on a different plane, that you are above the petty cycles of constant engagement. By doing so, you cultivate respect, and respect is the bedrock of influence. Moreover, strategic absence allows you to manipulate perception without overt action. People often confuse action with power, believing that constant motion equates to authority. Yet, history shows us that true influence is often the result of deliberate inaction, calculated withdrawal, and the artful creation of voids where others are compelled to move. By remaining unseen, you allow others to define themselves, to act, and to reveal their intentions. In doing so, you gain knowledge that those always in the spotlight can never acquire. You are not merely absent, you are omniscient, observing the world while remaining untouched by its turbulence. Absence also protects. It shields your strategies, your motives, and your vulnerabilities. Those who are always visible offer themselves as targets, exposing the patterns and weaknesses that cunning adversaries can exploit. To vanish is to guard your mind, your resources, and your influence. While others expend energy in constant engagement, you conserve your power, allowing it to accumulate silently. And when the moment demands it, you reappear with decisive force, catching those who believed they understood you entirely off guard, unprepared for the impact of your calculated return. In every sphere of life, whether in politics, business, or personal relationships, the lessons are clear. The constant need to assert presence diminishes authority. Those who appear too often lose their mystique. Those who are always visible invite scrutiny and attack. The one who vanishes, who disappears at the right time and for the right reasons, transforms absence into leverage. Others are compelled to fill the vacuum, to speculate, to act while you, unseen and unassailable, orchestrate outcomes with precision and cunning. In the theater of power, nothing captivates the human mind more than what it cannot see. Presence is often taken for granted, familiar and unremarkable. But absence, deliberate and strategic, transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. When you vanish, when you step back from the stage of constant interaction, you do not merely remove yourself from sight, you cultivate desire. You create a vacuum, a gap in perception that others are compelled to fill. And in filling it, they grant you influence, authority, and control without a word being spoken. Humans are naturally drawn to the unknown. We fear it, we respect it, and above all, we are obsessed with uncovering it. Mystery generates curiosity, and curiosity, when properly guided, leads to admiration. When you are absent, when your actions and presence are not constantly visible, people begin to speculate about you. They invent stories, imagine intentions, and elevate your significance far beyond what it might actually be. This is the subtle power of invisibility. By withholding yourself, by creating an air of intrigue, you allow others to construct the narrative, and in doing so, they unknowingly cement your authority in their minds. Consider the effect of someone who vanishes from the social sphere or professional arena, even briefly. People notice, they whisper, they question, they anticipate. Where has he gone? What is he planning? What is he thinking? This is no accident. This is the natural human response to a gap in visibility. When you are always present, your value diminishes through familiarity. When you are absent, you become scarce, and scarcity breeds desire. Those who understand this principle wield it with the precision of a master strategist. They do not act merely to be seen, they act to be remembered, to be longed for, and to be imagined. But desire through mystery is not simply about being absent. It is about the art of selective appearance. To vanish without purpose is to be forgotten, to fade into irrelevance. The invisible must be calculated, intentional, and strategic. Every retreat, every silence, every disappearance must serve a greater objective. You disappear to observe, to analyze, and to make others reveal their intentions. You vanish to create tension, to compel curiosity, and to amplify your significance in the minds of others. The longer and more deliberate your absence, the more potent the desire you awaken. Psychologically, humans are compelled to value what they cannot possess easily. Desire grows in the void. A friend or colleague who is constantly present becomes ordinary, a lover or associate who is always available becomes predictable. But the one who vanishes intermittently, who withholds access, suddenly becomes fascinating. People begin to invest their attention, imagination, and emotion into your absence. They measure your worth not by what you offer them directly, but by the impact your disappearance has on their world. In this way, the invisible exerts influence far greater than the visible. The unseen shapes behavior, thoughts, and choices without a single declaration of intent. In professional contexts, this principle is invaluable. A leader who is always in meetings, constantly issuing directives, and continually visible risks, losing strategic advantage. They are predictable, open to scrutiny, and confined by expectation. A leader who withdraws, who disappears from the immediate view, yet remains active behind the scenes, creates anticipation. Their absence is noticed, their return is celebrated, and their authority becomes magnified. People respect what they cannot fully control or predict, and in this respect, mystery is a form of dominance. Even in personal relationships, the allure of the invisible holds power. Individuals who maintain a level of mystery are often more desired, more respected, and more influential. They are never entirely understood, never fully possessed. Others are drawn to them, compelled to pursue, intrigued to discover the depth that lies beneath the surface. This pursuit in itself is a form of power. By strategically withholding access to oneself, one ensures that the effort of others serves to reinforce your importance, your value, and your authority. Moreover, the allure of the invisible is amplified by timing and unpredictability. To vanish without pattern is to confound expectations, to reappear without warning is to command attention and to reset the balance of influence. Those who operate on a predictable schedule of presence and absence can be anticipated, and their mystique erodes. But the master of invisibility manipulates absence like a sculptor shapes clay, creating peaks of curiosity and valleys of silence, forcing others to respond to their rhythm, to their cadence, and ultimately to their will. The power of mystery is also a shield. Invisibility protects you from scrutiny, criticism, and the petty manipulations of those who would seek to undermine you. When you are seen constantly, your weaknesses, your mistakes, and your intentions are exposed. When you are absent, you remain untouched, your reputation preserved, and your motives obscured. Others are left to interpret, to guess, and in guessing, they often overestimate your strength. This overestimation is a subtle form of dominance, a quiet leverage over perception itself. The seduction of absence, therefore, is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and tactical. Those who vanish strategically are not fleeing, they are positioning. They are creating desire, commanding attention, and shaping perception. And in this, they achieve a form of influence far greater than any overt display of power. Mystery draws people in, compels them to act, and molds their behavior around your absence. In the pursuit of power, there is no tool more subtle, no tactic more effective than the deliberate cultivation of desire through the invisible in the pursuit of power. Words are often overrated. They are fragile instruments, easily misinterpreted, forgotten, or turned against the speaker. Many believe that influence is built on constant communication, on persuasive arguments, and on clever rhetoric. Yet, history and observation reveal the contrary. The one who speaks less, who reserves judgment, and who wields silence strategically, commands authority far beyond the reach of the loquacious. Silence is not emptiness, it is a weapon. It endures where words fade, it intimidates where argument fails, and it exerts influence that lingers long after the speaker has withdrawn. Consider the nature of speech. Every word carries risk. A misstep can betray intention, reveal vulnerability, or provoke opposition. Even well-meant advice or counsel may be misconstrued, diminished, or used by others to manipulate. Those who are constantly vocal become predictable, their strategies transparent, their thoughts easily anticipated. In contrast, the one who masters silence remains an enigma. People are forced to interpret motives without guidance, to act without certainty, and to respect the unknown. In this way, absence and silence converge. The less one speaks, the more control one exerts over perception and consequence. Silence, however, is not mere inaction. It is deliberate, calculated, and purposeful. It is the choice to allow others to reveal themselves, to commit to actions, and to display their character while you remain unaffected. In conversation, in negotiation, and in conflict, silence is a form of observation. a method of gathering intelligence without exposure. When a rival grows impatient, when an adversary seeks explanation, and when allies speculate, the silent figure retains mastery over the situation. They do not need to argue, to justify, or to dominate through words. Their absence of speech alone commands attention, respect, and sometimes fear. The true power of silence lies in its ability to shape perception. People are inclined to fill voids with assumptions, projections, and expectations. When you remain silent, you allow others to construct your image, often amplifying your strengths and concealing your weaknesses. They imagine motives grander than reality, intentions more profound than those of ordinary mortals, and strategies more cunning than they could conceive. In doing so, they elevate you, willingly and unknowingly, into a figure of authority that words alone rarely achieve. To speak too often is to anchor perception in the mundane. To remain silent is to become mythic in influence. Silence also cultivates patience, both in oneself and in others. Those who rush to speak often reveal haste, insecurity, or impatience traits that erode respect. The master of silence moves deliberately, responding only when necessary, weighing action against consequence, and allowing events to unfold before committing words or decisions. By waiting, by observing, by allowing the flow of circumstance to reveal opportunity, one gains a vantage that speech rarely affords. Silence forces others to act first, to expose their weaknesses, and to reveal the true nature of their intentions. This is the subtle yet overwhelming advantage of the unspoken. The world moves while the silent figure remains poised, unaffected, and ever observant. In leadership, silence is a form of authority. The leader who speaks constantly may be mistaken for insecure, indecisive, or overly concerned with perception. The leader who speaks sparingly, choosing moments of intervention with precision, commands attention and conveys control. Their words carry weight precisely because they are rare. Every statement becomes significant, every decree becomes impactful, and every observation resonates far beyond its simple meaning. Silence ensures that presence is felt without constant declaration, that influence persists without effort, and that authority is respected without challenge. Silence also acts as a shield. When one is silent, one cannot be trapped by argument, ambushed by debate, or undermined by misrepresentation. The vocal often expose themselves, revealing intentions, emotions, or weaknesses that can be exploited. The silent, in contrast, remain untouchable. They maintain the high ground, observing the errors of others, controlling the flow of interaction, and strategically choosing when to intervene. Silence preserves dignity, protects power, and allows one to navigate the treacherous currents of influence with discretion and subtlety. Moreover, silence is a catalyst for fear and respect. Those accustomed to noise, to constant explanation and justification, are unsettled by its absence. The unspoken generates tension, fosters uncertainty, and compels caution. In conflict, silence can dominate the battlefield more effectively than speech. A rival may act recklessly, an adversary may overcome it, and allies may overcompensate, all while the silent figure remains poised, calculating, and in control. In these moments, silence is not weakness. It is the ultimate demonstration of composure, intellect, and strategic superiority. Silence and absence are intertwined, yet silence has the added virtue of permanence. While a physical disappearance is temporary, silence can persist even in the presence of others. One may engage, one may move through social or political arenas, yet still maintain the power of restraint, choosing not to speak in critical moments, allowing others to reveal themselves or falter, creates authority that endures long after interaction ends. Words are fleeting, but silence lingers in the mind, shaping perception, influencing decisions, and subtly reinforcing the invisible hand that guides outcomes. The art of silence requires discipline and insight. It demands the ability to resist the urge for immediate reaction, to hold judgment, and to act only when the moment maximizes impact. Those who cannot endure stillness are drawn into unnecessary conflict, lose clarity, and reveal vulnerabilities. The master of silence, however, understands that power often resides not in the noise one creates, but in the restraint one exercises. Every word saved is a reserve of influence. Every moment of silence is an investment in authority that compounds over time. To vanish is to wield power, but to return is to transform absence into dominance. The art of strategic disappearance is incomplete without mastery of timing. Many believe that simply withdrawing is enough to command influence, yet the true potency of invisibility lies not in the act of vanishing, but in the calculated moment of reappearance. Power is magnified when the world least expects your return, when anticipation has reached its peak, and when others are compelled to react to your presence rather than dictate it. The one who understands this principle does not merely move through the shadows, they choreograph the world's perception, dictating the rhythm of attention, respect, and fear. Reemergence must be deliberate. It cannot be hurried, for premature visibility diminishes the effect of absence. The longer the world experiences your absence, the more they fill the void with speculation, imagination, and sometimes anxiety. This is the tension you cultivate, a subtle pressure that builds in the minds of others. When you return at the precise moment, that tension transforms into power. Every glance, every word, every movement becomes amplified. People notice not only your presence but the context of your absence, associating it with purpose, strategy, and authority. This is the difference between returning to a stage and commanding it. Timing determines the perception of power. The principle of timing extends beyond mere days or weeks. It encompasses understanding the cycles of opportunity, the emotional rhythms of your audience, and the vulnerabilities of your adversaries. A premature return risks entering a situation before the stakes have shifted in your favor. A delayed return risks irrelevance. The strategist must observe, analyze, and calculate, ensuring that the moment of reappearance aligns with maximum effect. History offers countless examples of leaders who disappeared into obscurity only to return and reshape the world through impeccable timing. Their absence created expectation, and their return delivered transformation. This is not coincidence, it is mastery of the invisible hand that guides influence. Reemergence is also an act of narrative control. When you vanish, others fill your absence with assumptions, stories, and interpretations. The longer you remain unseen, the more elaborate and consequential these narratives become. By returning strategically, you seize control of these narratives, confirming, refuting, or reshaping them according to your advantage. People may have speculated, feared, or hoped, but in the moment of your return, you define reality. This is the ultimate leverage. You allow others to invest energy, thought, and emotion into your absence, and then, in a single act, you convert that investment into influence. The psychology of anticipation plays a central role in the art of reemergence. Humans are naturally drawn to peaks of suspense and moments of revelation. In social and political arenas, absence creates a vacuum of attention. Return transforms that vacuum into spectacle. Those who have underestimated your significance may be caught unprepared, reacting instinctively rather than strategically. Allies may feel relief, adversaries may feel intimidation, and all parties are compelled to adjust to your renewed presence. Your timing dictates not only their perception of you, but the pace at which they act, positioning you as the orchestrator rather than the participant. Strategic reemergence also enhances authority by demonstrating control over circumstance. While others are caught in cycles of reaction and routine, the one who disappears and returns on their own terms illustrates mastery over time, environment, and expectation. This is subtle yet undeniable power. It signals that you are not subject to the whims of external forces, that your actions are deliberate, and that your presence is consequential. The world takes notice, and respect sometimes fear naturally follows. The impact of timing is heightened by unpredictability. If your absences and returns follow a pattern, they become ordinary, and ordinary influence fades. The master manipulates rhythm to create tension and release, ensuring that reappearance is always a moment of consequence. This requires keen observation of human behavior, awareness of the stakes at play, and intuition for when curiosity, anxiety, or expectation has reached its apex. In the dance of visibility and absence, those who return unpredictably are not merely noticed, are anticipated, revered, and sometimes even feared. In practical terms, the strategic return must be executed with precision. One must re-emerge when opportunities are ripe, when rivals are vulnerable, or when allies require guidance. Each moment of return carries with it a weight that amplifies or diminishes the impact of absence. A poorly timed return may squander the advantage of disappearance. A masterfully timed reappearance transforms perception, consolidates influence, and asserts dominance. The invisible hand becomes visible at precisely the right moment, leaving observers astonished by both the subtlety of prior absence and the authority of current presence. Re-emergence is not merely about re-entering the public sphere, it is about reasserting control. To return without purpose is to dissipate the power built during absence. Every reappearance must align with strategic objectives, shaping the environment, influencing decisions, and guiding perception. Those who fail to align their return with broader aims are merely seen. Those who master the timing of return are revered. Timing ensures that absence becomes an instrument, speculation becomes leverage, and perception becomes reality. Ultimately, the art of re-emergence is a lesson in patience, observation, and precision. It is the culmination of strategic absence, desire through mystery, and silent influence. When executed properly, return is not simply a resumption of activity, it is a demonstration of mastery over both perception and circumstance. The invisible figure, once vanished, now becomes the axis upon which the world pivots, illustrating that in the game of power, disappearance is not weakness, and return is not mere re-entry, it is ultimate command. Power is rarely seized through constant presence, endless speech, or unrestrained action. True authority emerges from the mastery of absence, the cultivation of mystery, and the strategic deployment of silence. To vanish is not to flee, but to observe, to conserve, and to manipulate the perceptions of those around you. Desire is born in the spaces you leave, respect is forged in the restraint you exercise, and influence endures in the absence you command. By disappearing deliberately, you force others into a state of speculation and anticipation. They fill the void with imagination, they act in uncertainty, and they elevate your significance without realizing it. Silence becomes your ally, transforming moments of inaction into instruments of control, while words, when necessary, are amplified by their scarcity. And finally, the timing of your return converts absence into power. A re-emergence at the right moment reshapes perception, commands attention, and ensures that your presence dominates the stage you have long observed from the shadows. Those who understand these principles are not subject to the whims of circumstance or the expectations of others. They move unseen, they influence silently, and they return with force and precision. The invisible hand guides the world while remaining unobserved, and in this mastery lies ultimate authority. To vanish, to be mysterious, to speak sparingly, and to return strategically is to wield power that is subtle, enduring, and absolute. In the game of influence, the one who disappears is the one who ultimately dictates the rules, commands attention, and shapes the world according to their design.